their cattle and arrest them.
Is there going to be a toll line to say if you find cattle just roaming about, well, you call this and then we get into action?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that we can continue to ensure that the conversation on ranching becomes bigger and better, and let's see how many more people would be willing to invest in actually building ranches and growing their cattle in those ranches instead of moving them on foot across the country. Who still all that argument about this being a culture of certain tribe, and that's what they've been doing since right after Jesus left. All those arguments don't really work because we're in 2021 and nobody is walking around with cattle anymore. So why are we still fighting for this? So security of lives and property is still sole responsibility of governance and purpose of governance, and so the governors will have to do what they need to do.
Indeed. Like we keep saying, it's a good step that they've gone ahead to pass this bill into law, but the next step after that should be a focus on an implementation plan. And moving on now, our next uptrending story is about a 24-year-old native of Osun State who has been declared wanted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for a Ponzi scheme-related scam. So the EFCC put out a statement, and first of all, acknowledging that in June, they arrested the parents of this 24-year-old guy. They said he is the marketing director of a company called Wales Kingdom Capital Limited. He is wanted for alleged fraud, and they said that he had scammed people to the tune of millions and millions of naira. They said that he had received about 18 million naira before his arrest. He operates 5 different bank accounts. And they also went on to say that further investigation showed that the second victim, Victoria, the second suspect, Victoria, also operates 6 bank accounts through which she had received the sum of 916 million naira as well. It's just a lot. And it's unfortunate that we've been talking about Ponzi schemes, and the EFCC says this Ponzi scheme is in the guise of forex trading. I mean, we've talked about this a lot of times on The Breakfast, where people seem to want to be interested in an investment. They go ahead and invest in something, and then at the end of the day, this person who wants to operate this either runs out of the country with your money, or the person disappears, and people begin protest. And I believe that one of the first laws of investment is you should not put your money in something you do not understand. You need to understand it. Because we hear stories where people say, oh, just bring your money, I will invest for you, and they run away with your money. How about you take the time to learn exactly the trade? What exactly are you doing? I don't know.
Well, yeah, about learning, not very many people, have the time, and that's why these, platforms exist. Yeah, not necessarily the fraudulent ones, including the ones that are legit. The reason, people would rather just give them money to help them trade is because, well, they are not knowledgeable enough. If everybody was knowledgeable enough in this type of trade, then these, platforms would not even exist in the first place. So, on the background level, that's really how they function. They help you, trade with your money because you don't understand markets well enough, and so you trust them, to do it. Unfortunately, there are those fraudulent ones that would also take advantage of that space, and taking advantage of the fact that a lot of Nigerians are poor. A lot of Nigerians have life savings, have, salary that they are hoping would be able to, survive, them for a little longer. They don't have, hope in pensions or anything. They're hoping that at least, if they put money here, rent is assured at the end of the year. If they put money here, school fees is assured for next year. Those kind of little reasons why Nigerians will put their little 500,000 or 1 million or 200,000 in whatever scheme that they see, hoping. Even if, yes, there's still that avenue where people are greedy. When they tell you that if you put your money here, in 6 months it will be double, it will be triple. There's that greed and stupidity.
Bring 5 people.
Yeah, exactly. And they bring 5 people, bring 10 people. There's those who, of course, would want to get involved with that because they hope that they would be, millionaires overnight, which is completely stupid. And those who will tell you it's best you enter early so that by the time it crashes, you would have gotten your money back. That is a Nigerian thing. But I've also, said a few times that I pray that I never get to hustle the type of hustle that my parents will be arrested, and because that's one of the things that you mentioned, that I'm not even sure why his parents were arrested, because they're not criminals. They're not constituted this crime.
the Nigerian Police Act, and there's a section there that says that nobody should be arrested in lieu of anybody else. Like, my father cannot be arrested for crimes I commit, but that's in theory, that's on paper.
That's in theory.
You find that in
reality, bail is free.
Didn't you hear that Chidima's father was arrested? The Chidima that was alleged to have, murdered that CEO of that big TV station, and it's wrong.
Yeah, well, so yes, I know it is completely wrong, and I would once again mention that I hope, and this is aside the fact that yes, it is completely wrong. I hope that I never get myself involved in any type of hustle that would make my mother or my parents. I think there was some guy who was
you because of your friend or something like that.
No, not me. I'm talking about my parents now. I remember there was a story about a fraudster, I believe, that had scammed, I think a Yahoo boy, as it's popularly called, internet fraudster, that his mom had to be arrested on his behalf, for 3 or 6 million. I can't remember, some tiny amount of money that he allegedly took, from a
3 or 6
foreigner.
million is a tiny amount of money?
Well, for your mom to be in jail or to be in custody, it's just complete madness. But these are people, and another thing that is shocking here is this person is 24 years old. How are you such a criminal at 24? What are you hoping that you will be able to buy or achieve at that age? At 24, you're probably not even a graduate yet. You're still, trying to find your way around the university system before
you might have been a graduate.
24. So what money are you looking for that you scam people of almost ₦1 billion naira? So you can make it big. And these are the people that they put in Forbes 30 under 30 list, and they invite them to come and give numerous speeches across the country and look at them as role models. But they're just plain criminals, still allegedly criminals. So those are the little angles here and there. But it's always a reminder to Nigerians that if you don't really understand the market or you don't trust, you see any signs that make it look a little fraudulent, it's best you just keep your money to yourself, keep in your bank account.
And another thing is the fact that Nigerians, this is something we talk about a lot. The fact that Nigerians are so talented, are so gifted. When you look at the sciences, the arts, whatever it is, we are smart people. But the fact that, first of all, the society doesn't seem to be rigged towards favoring or enabling your growth. People then tend to turn such intelligence into other vices, into negative things, into criminal activities. And it's so sad. Imagine if we had our own MIT here in Nigeria, if we had, an enabling society that allows you plug in all your resources into developing solutions for the society. That would have been fantastic. But in the absence of that, you find people trying to find an outlet to express their genius. And when they find an opportunity to exploit people, they go that route. It's sad. Another top trending story today is also a sad one, and it's about the staff of a power distribution company who fell down from a power pole. The video made the rounds on social media. Thank God some of those blogs were able to have the good sense to blow that picture, because it really was gory. We've seen stories like this a lot of times. You hear, just check the news, you'll see staff of power distribution company electrocuted to death. Maybe they're up there trying to fix something wrong with the poles or disconnect the light, and then they're electrocuted, or they're trying to cut the lights of people who haven't paid. And because those people feel, oh, you haven't given us lights and you're coming to cut it, they gather together and they beat the man, maybe to death, maybe till he gets, sustains significant injuries. So these people are, they just are faced with the hazards of the work environment. And the questions I have are concerning their compensation. Are there compensation plans in these companies? When during the course of your duty you sustain injuries, do you get compensation? When during the course of your injuries you die, are there death benefits for your family? That's really the aspect of the conversation I need to focus on. And even on the field, what are the structures that are put in place to make sure that these people have all they need? Sometimes you see them with their shaky ladders. The ladders are not stable. So why would you put someone at risk? Maybe they've complained to the management that these ladders are shaking, these ladders are not stable. They say, oh, manage it like that, manage it like that. They will not fix it or get something better. Or I don't even know if they operate those things without gloves, or if they are even properly trained, if they have the technical know-how to operate these things such that they don't endanger their lives. These are all questions that I have regarding the fact that this man fell from this pole and he needed help.
Yeah, until you also hear that, a man who's carrying out that type of job probably doesn't end up to 100,000 naira. But he has to do what he needs to do to survive and feed his family. And yes, the Nigerian workspace I don't think there's enough laws to protect the Nigerian worker in existence. And most people also, or most companies also don't put those type of laws, make them available for, Nigerians to be protected, for workers to be protected. For someone who is, involved in such a hazardous job, he should have very, very, very high hazard allowance. But doctors are paid 5,000 naira as hazard allowance, and of course, those in the National Assembly are paid way more because their work is so
hard, so difficult.
So difficult, to sit down there and then 11 or 13 million every month and discuss and quarrel and fight and laugh. It must be really, really tiring doing that. And so they have way higher hazard allowance than a person who has to put himself through that level of danger every day to ensure that there's electricity. It's really just opening the space about about more compensation, like you mentioned, more benefits for people who work in those spaces, and there should be better or stronger laws. I'm not sure what
health
the laws
insurance
are.
as well, because that man should be treated for free.
But at the same time, I think Nigerians themselves also need to look into insurance. A lot of Nigerians don't, bother themselves because they imagine that our insurance is so expensive. Or what if I, pay the insurance, company this amount of money and I never fall sick, or I never, get into any, actual hazards, and some of all of that. But car insurance, health insurance, some of all those things are very, very important. Life insurance are very, very important.
I'm sure there's some that you can even get for like less than 5,000 naira a month that you contribute towards.
Absolutely. So those things are also, it's important that those things are also mentioned. But like you've also said, what is the work environment, or what are the tools, safety equipment that are available for these persons who have to work and change light bulbs or fix high tension wires. I saw a story of a particular guy in the United States that changes a bulb once a year. I think it earns $20,000 every time he has to climb that pole to change that.
That's a hazard.
It's very, very high. Yeah. But that's in a totally different climb. Here, it's very, very different. And we hope that he heals and is hopefully back to work.
Amen.
Or the company also takes full care of his hospital bills in this period.
But what you would hear sometimes is they would deny and say, oh, he's not a staff of our company. It's something we've seen a lot of times. They would deny you. And also, we know that it seems that there's a lack of laws in this area. But we've had experts in these spaces before mentioning that how many Nigerian workers actually know their rights. So there are laws you can read upon to arm you with this information. You need to know your rights as a Nigerian worker, such that if they're infringed upon, you can take this to the industrial court and seek redress. But Nigerians also have, or not exactly, that's that grin you have on your face. Nigerians have that mentality towards, taking things to court. They feel, oh, I am going to lose. But people actually take these matters seriously. Some people who have that information take these matters seriously, and they have gotten redress. So it is that attitude that you have that lots of Nigerians have to say, oh,
you don't know I don't
have money to pay for, no, really. I don't have money to pay for lawyers, so this and that. So I think,
the grin on my face is for a totally different reason.
Or you share that with me. So, because I know you though. So, so first of all, I feel every Nigerian, if you are above 18 and you work, there are some laws that you need to, do some basic Google search, find out those laws, read them, understand them, so you know when your rights are being trampled upon, what steps can you take? Very important.
Well, I agree. I'm not sure if we have time to look at the video of couples being prayed for, women praying for.
Do we have time for that?
Let's see if we can. If we have that clip, can we? Okay, anyway. Hopefully we'll bring it up sometime tomorrow. It's a very interesting clip of wives, being, helped to pray for their husbands to be faithful and to choose
who I would assume are cheating husbands, because that prayer was very specific. You would desire only me.
Yeah,
so
I think it's
so possessive.
It's crazy how even while that prayer is going on, that some of those men might be receiving texts from their side.
As they're stepping out, they are fixing appointments.
The Nigerian husband is a breed on its own. It's a particular, special type of breed of husband that you don't, well, anyway. We need to move on. We'll take a short break. When we come back, what major stories have made headlines across the papers this morning? We'll be looking at them with our guest, Chris Wandu, the publisher of CKN News, will be joining us. Stay with us. Good morning once again.
businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. Now let's look at the newspapers this morning and see what major stories have made the headlines. We'll be starting with the Punch newspapers. And the big one there is talking about the Apapa gridlock. Should be on your screen in just a few seconds, yes. It says Apapa gridlock persists. Lagos blames NPA. MAN laments losses. NPA closes gates to trucks without reasons. Some will lose aid, says. Manufacturers urge government to develop ports outside Lagos. And businesses losing billions of naira to port congestion, says the LCCI. Nigerians spend 2.33 trillion naira on petrol in 12 months, says the NNPC. And also, Kogi oil producing status, Enugu's exclusion from 13% derivation is injustice, says Ohaneze and the state. Also, Nigerian diplomat assault in Indonesia closed. Recalled envoy returns to Jakarta. Southern and Middle Belt Alliance tackles NEF over voters' claim and 2023 presidency. Also, NMA laments as doctors and health workers flee Nigeria in droves. Still on the Punch, APC will be divided if it zones presidency to North, says Okorocha. Oyo PDP dismisses party leader's plan against Makinde. And we can also find on the Punch, headers with guns risk 21-year imprisonment as Sanwo-Olu signs bill. Father arrested for impregnating 19-year-old daughter. Suspect blames devil. And presidential panel sells 7-story FRCN Lagos building for 100 million naira.
On the Daily Independent, 30 state civil servants face bleak future in retirement. 2023 presidency, Okorocha backs southern governors, says Nigeria's unity threatened by tribesmen in politics. FG should dialogue with Igbo leaders over IPOB Kanu. PDP chairmanship horse trading as PDP zoning committee decides Thursday. Sit at home, Southeast WASSC candidate to retake missed exams. Lagos prohibits open cattle grazing as Sanwo-Olu signs bill into law. NNPC records crude oil gas sales of $19.75 million in May. COVID-19, NIPRD, Cuba may commence vaccine clinical trials in Nigeria. We have power to sell FG property without notifying MDAs, PIC tells reps. Security operatives shoot students protesting suspension of exams in Jos. Wike canvasses support to allow states collect VAT.
All right, now to the leadership newspapers. Northern and Southern leaders disagree over 2023 presidency. It's Igbo presidency or nothing, says Ohaneze. No, North must remain power, says Northern Coalition. Afenifere Panda faults NEF's population claim. Niger Delta activists back Southern governors. Oshimbajo's sellable in 2023, says Governor Sule. And also Nigeria's unity unshakable, and that's from the federal government. Northern governors mourn May Lafia. And Sokoto shuts down telecom network in 14 local government areas. Sanwo-Olu signs anti-open grazing bill into law. And also on the leadership, Kaduna, Ekiti, Anambra, Akwa Ibom lead in fiscal transparency, says a report. Finally, on the leadership, monthly deadline institute directs firms to remit value-added tax to FIRS. All right, and then let's also quickly see what we can find on the Daily Trust newspapers. How Boko Haram crisis killed 300,000 children in Northeast. Young boys used as suicide bombers. Many died of malnutrition. 1 million others displaced in 12 years. Attacks on children must stop, says UNICEF. And ISWAP intensifies recruitment, Army says. Reps demand reports of assets seized from ex-leaders. And NNPC earns 366 billion naira from crude oil product sales in May. Oshimbajo most qualified to succeed Buhari in 2023, says the Nasarawa State Governor. Plateau Cross River reject compulsory COVID-19 vaccination. That's all we can find on the Daily Trust. Good morning to Mr. Chris Wandu. Thanks for joining us once again.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. I think you can start with the conversation on zoning. Mohaneze says presidency must come to the southeast. The Northern Coalition is speaking once again about having the numbers to hold the presidency for a lot longer. And White must also come to the north. And of course, there's also Governor Sule mentioning the Vice President, Yemi Oshimbajo. So let's start off with that.
Every region in Nigeria has the right the president in the past. People here so it is a pure arrangement of the
all right. Mr. Wanda, it's a struggle.
President into area to to the north and the south.
All right. I think it's a struggle hearing Chris Wandu this morning. We might be having challenges with the network. So we're going to have to reconnect with Chris Wandu, who's a publisher of CKN News, and get him to share his views on these stories. The first one, of course, he was speaking about is concerning zoning. I think there's a couple of people who have mentioned there's a Northern Coalition that say of course, North, has the numbers to hold the presidency for, a lot longer. I think that I also saw a story on Baba Ahmed, still speaking about the same zoning controversy. A lot of people would have the same argument that yes, it is, every section of the country has a right to vie for presidency. But of course, the idea of zoning, really is to ensure that every single person gets a turn, gets a chance at the presidency, the seat of the president. But it also goes beyond just presidency. Even in states, in local government, there's also that same zoning arrangement where you hear that, this local government has had it for 4 years. Let's give it to this local government next. These people are coming next, and some of all of that. And so they always play those internal politics. The political parties themselves also play that politics and say, okay, whoever is going to be our national leader, would be from the south or will be from the north, and then the president, the person who gets the ticket for president will be from a totally different region. So there's that. Okay, let's bring back Chris Wandu. Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yes, as I was saying, so it's not expressly Nigerian constitution that any particular part of the country we put the presidency. It is just a gentleman agreement in the political party to tread that line. I think it has been working effectively. Also, the last administration that brought in Goodluck Jonathan, where President Yar'Adua suddenly died in office, and Goodluck Jonathan took over and also now run again as a candidate of the PDP from the south. But now moving forward, we believe we did generally that equity and fair play will come to play, which is why the people of the south believe that it is their turn. If you can recall, since Nnamdi Azikiwe in the First Republic, no person from the Southeast extraction has been able to make it to the president, and they just feel that this is the period for the Southeast to get the presidency. Good enough, the governors of the South, the southern governors, that they are recently in Ebonyi State, also canvassed that the presidency should come to the South, although they were not specific on which part of the South it should come to. So, but it is not going to be an easy task just for the Southeast to sit down and feel that the presidency will just be put on their laps or just be given to them like that. It needs a lot of politicking has to be done. A lot of negotiation has to be done. A lot of consultation has to be done with other regions, and so that whatever candidates are bringing forward, they can be acceptable to all other regions. Anything short of that is historic on the part of the Southeast. So they have to make sure that they consult widely, especially within the two main political parties, the PDP and the APC as it were. Until they're able to do that and be able to get the confidence of all other parts of the country, then it should be a mirage or an issue that they cannot just be bragging about. It is politics, it's about numbers, and it's also about negotiation. But if you just see that, you sit down and say, oh, it is our right, it is our time to get the presidency in 2022, my brother, you can be rest assured that that will not work.
Mr. Wandu, I want you to also speak on the angle of dishonesty with some of all of this. And 2 points that I'm going to make is, in a couple of years, back, when some of all the elections, were about, or when some of these decisions were made, there were certain statements that you would hear back then, that this person would run and then it will move to so and so place. And so because of that, we need your support. And it was one of the things that the politicians used to gather, support for, themselves. But we always see that a year or two to the election, some of all those agreements are thrown out the window. There is that. And also the numbers that the Northern Coalition claims to have, do you think it's also unfair that the Middle Belt seems to be dragged into the North, when these conversations are had, and their numbers, are pulled together with the Northern numbers, and, also completely ignoring the fact that there's many Christian, I believe, communities in Northern Nigeria that seem to all just be grouped together and called the North?
Yes, I agree with you. Let me take you back to 1999. When Obasanjo won the presidency in 1999, the Southwest did not vote for Olusegun Obasanjo. The Southwest didn't support Obasanjo, but he won. He won with the vote of the North and some other parts of the South. That is on record. Yeah, secondly, also, as you already said, yes, is not have the number. But even at that, you also realize that when Abiola won the election, or the election that was annulled against Kufa, the people of the north voted heavily for Abiola, even against their own son, who was Topa, the candidate of the NRC then. Abiola was of the SDP, and Abiola was cruising home until that election was annulled by Ibrahim Babangida and his government. What am I saying in essence? There is a possibility for this kind of unity, as I said earlier on, where if you're able to canvass your policies properly and be able to negotiate properly, even the North, the sentence that it must be good for candidates of the South. Then, I want to say that, yes, there are Christians in the North, especially some parts, major parts of the North, like especially in the within the Middle Belt, and even in Kaduna, Southern that I mentioned. So the tendency also is for them that they may also vote for a candidate from the South of Christian social texts. All in all, irrespective of whether the North is bigger or the South is all addressed them, anybody that emerges as a presidential candidate of any party must be able to make sure that all that every part and of this section of this country is carried along. But let me give you a scenario. There is also the tendency that the way it is going now, it's most likely that the presidential candidate of the APC is going to come from the South. It's most likely. That of the PDP is neither here nor there, but the thinking is that the presidential candidates may come from the North and probably the vice president from the South. That would be a great changer in the months to come. That is, if that eventually comes up, because the convention of the PDP coming up in October or thereafter will determine where they're going to sow their president. If the chairman of the party comes from the South, that means definitely the presidential candidate will come from the North. Let's see how this pans out as it goes. Okay.
Many other stories across the newspapers. I want us to look at the one on the Daily Independence this morning. First of all, it talks about 30 state civil servants who are facing a bleak future in retirement. And the story in detail mentioned that since the Pension Reform Act of 2004, many states are yet to comply, and that means that the civil servants of this state face an uncertain future regarding what their pensions will be like. And we've seen time and time again, Nigerian pensioners queuing up on the stories on the Daily Independent again, queuing up in front of certain offices in their state asking for their pension to be paid. Since 2004 till now, over 30 states yet to comply. Which way?
Which way, Nigeria? You remember the music by one of Nigeria's legends, Sonny Okosun. The music was "Which way, Nigeria? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. I want to." That has always been the song on every lips of Nigerian, of every Nigerian, as I may say. But the problem is that our successive government at both the state and the national level have paid lip service to pension payments. I remember in those days in Abuja, if you go to a place like Zone 3, there used to be a pension office for military officers. Any day you pass that area, you used to see them, all the people loitering around. So they just bring back from their various states and be sleeping outside. So for weeks, just for them to regularize and for their pension to be paid. I think that has been bad, and the military have been able to try to get their own act together. But the issue is that there is so much corruption going on in all the pension institutions. Don't forget that a particular man that was Mena, that was appointed as the chairman of the pension. What do you call it now? I can't remember what it was called. Instead of making sure that pensions are paid, he amassed this and embezzled billions and billions of naira that were meant for pensioners. And at the end of it all, he was prosecuted. He ran away. He jumped bail. And it was recently that he was rearrested in Niger or thereabouts and brought back to Nigeria and now continued. So that has been the problem. But the issue we have is that most states are paying lip service. This is the entitlement. This is the entitlement of these workers. They labor and they're supposed to, when they're supposed to reap the fruit of their labor, and nothing is being done. It cuts across streets and it becomes very difficult. So if you see these government officials, governors, deputy governors, speakers, and the rest of them, even at once they leave office, they budget so much for their pension. Even when they are not pensioned, when they are not even, they've not retired. Some of them leave government house as governors and move to the National Assembly to become senators and what have you, and continue collecting salaries there and also collecting pension. So I think something drastic has to be done. What I believe that there might be, if the federal government, National Assembly can enact a law where this money can be deducted from source, directly from source, and paid directly to the pensioners. I don't know how that can be done. Instead of just waiting on the state government and the federal government to handle the issue of pension. Most of them die waiting for their pension. And it's quite unfortunate. A lot of people just do that and invest all this money. And that is where we find ourselves in Nigeria.
All right. You can also quickly share on the Lagos State Governor signing the anti-open grazing bill yesterday. He has, of course, been commended in a few quarters. But quickly share your thoughts on, how that is going across the southern states.
Well, Governor Sanwo-Olu is only following the agreement or directive of the southern governors at the meeting that they held. I think it was in Lagos that they held that meeting, and it was agreed that open grazing should be banned in the whole of the south. And I think Sanwo-Olu is only following suit. Don't forget, Ondo State have done that, and some other river states, I guess, as well, and some other states have been to do that. But my own challenge is, despite the agreement by the southern governors, some state governors are still very hesitant in signing that bill. And I don't know why they are doing that. So the governor of Imo State practically says that he's not going to be part of it. And then some other states have not lost. But I think this is the way to go. The relative peace we are having in Benue State now was due to the signing of the open grazing law. Before then, my brother, you could remember that people were being slaughtered on a daily basis in Benue State, that the governor just said that the only way out of this problem is signing that open grazing bill into law. And what it did, that killing reduced, it reduced drastically by over 90%. And what I just think that the governors of the South are trying to do is to be able to prevent that from happening in the South. It was already happening in Edo State, in Ondo State, and other parts, even in Ebonyi State. Several people were killed by so-called Fulani herdsmen. So that is why I commend Governor Sanwo-Olu for signing that. Let's also forget that the issue of the VAT law is also in progress. Lagos have signed that, Rivers have signed that, and some other states are also following suit. So I commend Governor Sanwo-Olu for that initiative. Okay,
and also on the Daily Trust newspaper, the headline there is about a report by UNICEF that the Boko Haram crisis has killed about 300,000 children in northeast Nigeria, have displaced many more, and have caused a mental health crisis for over 5,000 children. And this is also as the army released a report saying that ISWAP has intensified recruitment of jobless youth in northern Nigeria. When we look at attacks against children, Mr. Nwandu, does there really seem to be enough effort on the part of the government and the army to stop this, situation?
I will tell you for free that it's quite unfortunate. Let's look at it from the point that there are some countries of the world that have a population of just less than 5 million people. We can do a Google. There are some countries that are just less than 5 million. So many countries are not up to 10 million. Then jeopardize that on 300,000 people being killed in that particular country. That is a high rate of fatality. So if you kill 300,000 people or children, as it were, in that country, that means that close to about 10 to 15% of that population have been eliminated. But here we face this service to solve these issues, probably because of our population, we're over 200 million, probably because of the insensitivity of our leaders who don't see anything wrong in what is going on. Or probably also the level of leadership of the country, as well as our security agencies, who seems to have lost all sense of responsibility in tackling this issue. Killing of children, that is in the north, 300,000 is not, we are not talking of animals here, we are not talking of chickens, we are not talking of goats, we are not talking of cows, we are talking of future leaders, leaders of tomorrow. One of those kids could have been a governor, I can assure you. One of them could have ended up becoming a president. One of them could have been one to come up with a solution to problem that Nigeria is currently facing. They were killed, and some of them are still in the dungeon. Some of them are in the forest, they've been kidnapped. Most of the kids in the north cannot go to school. So that shows the level of, it has come to, Nigeria has come to what George Orwell called animal farm. Nigeria has gone to animal farm, where respect of human life doesn't seem to count any longer. So it is quite unfortunate. I hope that the federal government will see that statistic, and the security agencies also will see that statistic. But I can rest assured that tomorrow, Garba Shehu and Femi Adesina will come out and start to rationalize and try to deny those reports and the rest of them. The Daily Trust newspaper is one of the most authoritative newspaper in Nigeria when it comes to issue of security reporting. And most often than not, anything that comes for Daily Trust, I don't have to when it comes to issue of security.
It's actually a UNICEF report.
We have find ourselves.
It's actually a UNICEF report that they published anyway about the crisis.
All right, Mr. Wando, now still talking about kids, let's move to the southeast where there's a story on one of the papers saying that kids over there would have to retake their West African senior school certificate examinations, that they missed because of the sit-at-home order by the IPOB. Share your views on that one. The IPOB has continuously said that they have cancelled the sit-at-home order, yet people stay at home on Mondays. And of course, this obviously is affecting business and affecting education.
Personally, I was relieved. First and foremost, let me say, I'm from the Southeast, and on behalf of the people of the Southeast, I will say thank you very much to WAEC for that decision. A big thank you to WAEC. We are very grateful. I've been one of those that have been very, very worried about the disruption of this ongoing exam by so-called unknown government, or what some people now call government unknown, whatever you call it. The fact remains that education is key. And if the children have missed this examination, it will take them another 1 year before they can be able to write the exam again. So the action of WAEC on this issue is very, very commendable. And it is a warning to those that are taking the ember of insecurity in the Southeast. Funny enough, we also realize the fact that IPOD have come to say that they are not behind this case, that they have cancelled the sit-at-home directives issued earlier on, and that they are not part of it. Then the question you ask yourself, if IPOD that initially came up with that directive said they are no longer interested in that, and they have stopped that, and people should go about their duties on Monday. Then why are the people of the South not coming in? Come down to leadership, I've always said.
Okay.
The leaders do the right thing and assure the people and make sure that their lives are property are safe. Then people will have the to compare. Don't forget that the instances where they come out and they were attacked, and some vehicles have been burned in recent times by people. This is where the security agencies have to up their game. Who are those behind? If IPOD have come out categorically to say that they are not part of it, then I believe the DSS, that is the job of the DSS. DSS, the spy agency of this country, supposed to do their due diligence. It is not just about the military. Yes, the army, the police are there to secure, make sure that people are not. Because the DHS should be able to go into investigation and find out who are those behind it and who are those trying to debate this issue and make sure that they are arrested. If we can do that, then the issue of this, don't forget some of the governors are already trying to do something. We are knocking march last week, walking down the streets of Anambra, asking people to come out, their lives are properties are secured. But is that enough?
Okay, Mr. Nwandu, I want us to also look at the story about COVID-19. On the Daily Independent, there's a story here that says the Nigerian Institute of Pharmaceutical Researchers and Cuba are collaborating to conduct clinical trials of COVID-19 vaccines in Nigeria later, in the next few months. So while that's going on, while there's about to be a collaboration between Nigeria and Cuba for clinical trials of COVID-19 vaccines, and we see a story on the Daily Trust that says that Cross River and River states reject compulsory COVID-19 vaccine, even though Edo, Ondo, and Osun states have made it compulsory for civil servants in their own states. But this one here, it is the Cross River State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Betta Edu here, that's saying that there is no need to make the COVID-19 vaccination compulsory for citizens, and they don't need to impose it. And in Plateau State, the same thing, the State Commissioner for Information and Communication really said the same thing. So how do we balance this? International collaboration for COVID clinical trials, some states making it compulsory and others saying it wasn't necessary.
Well, the first part of the question on issue of clinical trials, that is good. I've always been one of those that believe that there is need for us to domesticate the issue of COVID vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, instead of always looking for handouts from nations of the world, India, United States, United Kingdom, and other Western countries, for us to have those vaccines. If they don't send it to us, then there's nothing we can do about it. I don't think we've had up to 6 million or more than 6 million vaccines since the beginning of this pandemic. Initially, it was 3 million that was sent, then subsequently some other ones were sent. We're talking of a population of over 200 million. That means we are under vaccinated. And funny enough, I'm sure you must have also been hearing what the news have been making the round that if you are going to start with some parts of the world, I don't want to be specific now, they say that part of the vaccination that you had there, and they are not accepting in this country. I don't know whether the Federal Ministry of Health and the relevant agencies have come out to be able to debunk that. And we need to hear from them on that. That has been going on, that you go to certain country and you're taking a vaccine in Nigeria, it is not acceptable. You have to take another one. Then back to the question on the issue of some states saying that they cannot force people to. It is starting to do that. Every state has a right to determine what to do. But what I always say is that let people take their health personally. It's not becoming a personal issue. If you think there's a need for you to get the vaccine, get it. I have taken mine. I've taken the 2 jabs, and even at that, I'm still doing necessary restrictions I need to do, social distancing, washing my hands, etc. It is your life. It is not the life of the state governor. It is not the life of the state government. It is your life. If anything happens to you, the so-called governor or state government is saying there's no vaccine, there's no COVID, and there's no need to shut down and they're able to possible to get it. We not do anything about it. You will die. So my own is that people should take their health personally, irrespective of whatever any government says, and that's the way to go.
All right. Thank you very much, as always, on Tuesdays for joining us and for being a part of the discussion this morning.
Yes, and I do agree with you. We need to take responsibility for our own lives because the ultimate decision really is up to you. Thank you very much again, Mr. Nwandu. Have a great day.
Thank you for agreeing with me, and do have a nice day.
All right, we're just quickly going to go straight into Today in History. This day in 2013, the 21st of September, was a very, very sad day across the world, but mostly in Kenya. It has become popularly known as the Westgate Shopping Mall attack, where about 70 plus people were killed on this day when Al-Shabaab terrorists attacked the mall. It says about 68, I believe, civilians were killed, 4 terrorists, and a couple of also, those numbers also include some of the police men who went in to help rescue these, victims of a terrorist attack. Of course, the Al-Shabaab terror group, that for me was the first time that I heard about them, claimed responsibility for the attack and said it was mostly because of Kenya and Kenya's efforts in Somalia that have continued to attack the group where they were originally, I believe, founded. It was a very, very sad moment that lasted for almost 24 hours. Where, of course, there were also bombs that were thrown, grenades were used, a part of the mall also collapsed. Some of the people were all taken hostage for so long and, of course, summarily executed by these terrorists before they were eventually killed. And, of course, the Kenyan government did go ahead with the investigation, arrested a couple of people that were accomplices, who had housed the terrorists before they went on to carry out the attacks. I'm not sure if anybody has been sent to jail in particular. I need to confirm that. But yeah, it was a very, very sad day in Kenya and across Africa.
Yes, so this particular event was considered one of the deadliest jihadist attack in Kenya. Reports say that these terrorists occupied the Westgate Mall for 4 days. I mean, can you just imagine? And the fact that soldiers who went in there to provide help and rescue also turned out to be victims. 3 people were pointed out as suspects. 2 of them got prison sentences. 1 got 18 years in prison. Another one got 33 years in prison. And the third guy...
Accomplices now.
Yes, the third guy, yes, they were accused of aiding the Islamist sect. The third guy went missing. It was just a very, very sad day. This Al-Shabaab group based in Somalia really accusing Kenya of meddling in the affairs in Somalia and then, carried out this attack. The exact number of casualties are still undetermined. Some say over 70. BBC reports say 67. But it really
about 200, I think. There also is about 150 to 200 were injured.
I mean... It's just so terrible. But the good thing is that this attack happened September 21st. About a month later, October 20th, that was when, these guys were sentenced to 18 and 33 years in prison. But I don't think it's something anyone will forget in such a hurry.
No. Across the world, I think it made headlines across the world. Pretty much the same thing with the London bombing, the attack in France. There's certain events, terrorist attacks that have made headlines across the world, and everybody followed through. The France one, the Australian shooting, also the London bombing, of course, the World Trade Center attacks. Also, there's many of them like that, but this one definitely made those headlines across the world, and it happened on this day in Kenya in 2013. Our first major conversation for today comes up right after this break. We're going to be talking zoning and how, this all plays out with the next general elections. There's already been conversations from the Northern Coalition, Northern Forums. The Middle Belt also has been urged to also have their say. The Southeast very likely also would be chipping in here. And we'll be talking about the little details here and there when we come back.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, they go beat you. Now 2,500 they pay.
Challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
For me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, you know, good food is going to come out of that kitchen.
You can leverage on each other's spaces and, you know, sell. We believe in Nigeria, right? We believe that Nigeria can get better. We, the youth, are the ones that can make it better.
and my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
Made in Niger, showing every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. and repeats on Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
Welcome back to the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Our next conversation is going to be discussing security. Earlier we had mentioned about 300,000 from a UNICEF report. About 300,000 kids had, of course, been killed in the last decade concerning the insurgency in the northeast and, of course, in other parts of Nigeria. It also says about 1 million have also been displaced. But there's some conversation, that every now and then, has crept up, and that is the differentiation between the Boko Haram sect, or basically the persons who are responsible for these numbers and for the insurgency and the insecurity in northern Nigeria. There's the Boko Haram sect, there's the ISWAP, and of course there's now the bandits, there's kidnappers, there's unknown gunmen, there's many of them. We're speaking this morning with Yehoza Getso, who's a security analyst, to share his thoughts on helping differentiate and identifying these groups, better. Good morning, Mr. Getso.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. All right, Yehoza Getso, we've dealt with the insurgency for more than a decade now in Nigeria. And over time, in the last few years, we've seen the emergence of new groups, we've seen the emergence of new names with, also varying degrees of atrocities against the Nigerian state. There's been those who have argued that some of all these people are really just offshoots of the same Boko Haram sect and are no different, but, have just been poorly named. Do you agree with that, or would you say that there truly are different groups from the Boko Haram sect that have committed these, same atrocities against the Nigerian state?
Yeah, both of them, the Boko Haram, ISWAP, and Banditry, they are all insurgents in general. But in particular, each of them have a different objective and they have no relationship. Even though at a much later time, there were certain relationships which probably I will discuss as we move. There are certain emergence of informal relationships in terms of their behavior and attitude, in terms of the way they operate. So now, let's take one after the other. Boko Haram is a rebel, or it's a terror group that emancipated as a result of the leadership of late Muhammad Yusuf, who is a religious activist, or religious, yes, you can call him a religious activist, but his activism have no base in Islamic perspective. Because I have read so much about Islamic philosophy, Islamic political philosophy, and the Islamic democratization, or whatever the relationship between whatever you may call it. So now, the Boko Haram it come up as a result of, it's a kind of political stooge. One of the governors in the Northeast used as a political thugs. And later, when he dumped them, after injecting a certain ideology in them, so they now pick up what is the meaning? The meaning of Boko is a Western education. So they don't like anything Western education. They don't want to promote Western ideology and so on and so forth. While the ISWAP, the Boko Haram, which later after the killing of Muhammad Yusuf, we advised the government based on research and investigation we conducted, and we realized that there is need to have a shift in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of managing the situation, not until when Nigerian government became so relaxed and so adamant and so careless to have allowed the alliance between the Boko Haram and other foreign and internal political forces, both political and administrative, which are yet to be ascertained. Even though we always refer to the Minister of Information, La Mohammed's statement, where he's saying that they know who are the financiers and the leaders of the Boko Haram. That one, I leave it with him because I don't have I don't have information from what he has. But all I know is that I know there is emergence of Boko Haram, which is aimed at shifting from Western education to Islamization. Not really Islamization. In the real doctrine of Islam, there is nothing like terrorism. There is nothing like activism. From the inception of what Islam is all about, from what I have read, because I have been conducting research and studies on Islamic political system, Islamic studies, Islamic religion, Islamic theology, and Islamic philosophy, and Islamic psychology, and the criminal psychology, how Islam deals with criminal psychology in the last 25 to 27 years. But up till now, I didn't see any relationship between Islam as a religion and the Boko Haram ideology. That is about Boko Haram. Now, ISWAP. ISWAP is a spelled-out alliance of Al-Qaeda and other multilateral terror groups that have a different perspective and different mission of how they operate. All they are after is to take over the leadership of the world. Not only under ISWAP, it's a distribution of insurgents, criminal or terror that have bilateral, regional, and international network. So it has a network like in West Africa. You have a lot of ISWAP members in Benin. You have them in Algeria. You have them in Niger. You have them in Libya. You have them in Mali. And probably part of them are expected to also be in Egypt. And they're also in the US. And they have made a lot of relationship between what is obtainable in terms of their operations, in terms of their philosophy, in terms of managing situations, and in terms of how their doctrine have a direct relationship with Al-Qaeda and other terrorists in the Middle East, in the Western world, and also in part of the far Asian countries. Because I could remember that during 2014-2015, I was in Myanmar, India, Afghanistan, and some part of other Asian countries, including Sri Lanka. Later, I came back to East Africa, where I visited Somali and Ethiopia, and as well as part of the Southern Sudan, where I conducted a number of researches and investigations, and also conducted a comparative study to understand what this ISWAP and their relationship and link with the other Al-Qaeda groups. So now, that is about the ISWAP. So there is a co-relationship, a common relationship in terms of operational philosophy between the Boko Haram and that of ISWAP, because they are all working on the doctrine of Islamic terrorism. That is their own perspective. But to be fair to Islam as a religion, there is nothing like terrorism or activism in Islam. It's not part of the Islamic doctrine, but they hide under the disguise of Islamic struggling to have emancipation of Islamic leadership in all these countries for them to have their operations succeeded, or using it as a kind of, you can call it as a serene or as an anthem or so, whatever you call it. Now, coming into Bandatri. Bandatri, before I go into Bandatri, let me quickly make a recap. Boko Haram, 99.9% of the leadership of Boko Haram and the commanders are well educated. Many of them are engineers. Many of them are there are medical doctors among them. There are pharmacists. There are all sorts of professionals. There are art and social scientists. Most of them are graduates. And their leadership is also have a combination of even some have a PhD qualification. But they tear their qualification and throw it away. For them, they have wasted their time and intellect. So they now want an Islamic government to emerge. But that is wrong to Islam. That is my understanding from the 22 to 27 years research I have conducted and comparative analysis of Islamic theology, Islamic studies, Islamic philosophy, Islamic political concept, and so on, and the Islamic civilization and the history of Islam based on what I read. To be fair to Islam, there is nothing, Islam will not accept Boko Haram and will not accept the ISWAP. So that is a cut. Going into Bandatri. The Bandatri is an activity, the ISWAP and the Boko Haram is mostly dominated, or their activities are dominant in the areas of northeastern part of Nigeria and other countries alike of Cameroon, Chad, Libya, and other countries as I mentioned. And they have a base in United Arab Emirates. They have a base in the Sahelian part of African Horn. And then they also have a direct link with Western Bloc and a part of Eastern Bloc in the Western Europe. So now, coming into Banditry in Nigeria. Banditry is an activity that has a long historical perspective, historical antecedents, which was overseen by Sardauna, Tafawa Balewa, Azukwe, and even the pre-colonial and colonial administrators. Because it happens as a result of the lingering relationship, the relationship between the nomads and others. Virtually, many people think that Fulani are the leaders. Yes, of course. There are a lot of Fulanis in the activities of banditry, in the activities of kidnapping, in the activities of what is happening, especially in the north central and northwestern, southern northwestern states. But notwithstanding, if you take it, 99.9% of them are illiterate. 99.9% of the bandits in northwestern state and northwestern state and north central states operating in Benue, Kogi, Nasarawa, Niger, Kaduna, Katsina, and part of outskirts of Kano, and to some extent some part of Jigawa, Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto, and alike. They are illiterate. 99.9% of them, they cannot write and they cannot read. And they cannot even understand the difference between A and B. Even though they are very minute, based on my interaction and investigation, very minute, not up to 5 decimal in 100, that they can be able to understand the concept of Arabic notes. That is alifun, ba'un, ta'un, and so on. So some of them, very few and very minute in number. They understand the concept of Islam. They call themselves Muslim, but they are not even praying. They are not even praying. They are not even praying. They don't accept. They believe they are Muslim, but they don't have the knowledge of Islamic knowledge. So, and their operations is just to kill. There is no key objective, no key, no defined objective, no defined goal, no defined strategy. They get arms through the arm importers and arm dealers. So in the correlation, the Boko Haram, the ISWAP, and the Banditry, if you want to say that they have a correlation, yes, of course, they have a correlation because all of them have a bilateral and multilateral connections. That is one. All of them, they are determined to kill. All of them are determined to destroy. All of them are determined to detonate bombs and other things. Even though bandits are not detonating bombs, but as time goes on, they have obtained AA, that is anti-aircraft and other sophisticated arms, RPG, PMG, and other dangerous arms and ammunition. They get it through the bi-relationship between the three of them. Of course, there was a time I had an intelligence information of a meeting that happened between the ISWAP, the Boko Haram, and the bandits, which happened within the vicinity of Kaduna State, Niger State, as well as the Katsina State. That means it happens in the belts that link up these states around the Binungwari area, Binungwari local government area in Kaduna State, some part of Sabua, Dandume in Katsina State, and some part of Kagara in Niger State, and some part of Sakaba and part of Yauri, Rijau in Niger and Kebbi State. So these are the lingering situation. And at that time, I was able to mobilize those informations and share it with the national security operatives for onward actions, even though the privileged information I provided was neglected until when the meeting was conducted. Even though I was not at the meeting, but I had some reliable information that the meeting for coordination and collaboration happens, but I did not have any information on the outcome of the meeting. But all I know is there is now a kind of correlation between the Boko Haram, the ISWAP, the Ansaru, and Banditry.
Okay, Mr. Getso, just a minute. You have tried to explain to us that there's a difference between Boko Haram, ISWAP, and bandits. But many other security analysts would beg to differ. They believe that bandits are just another word, another synonym for Boko Haram terrorism because they carry out acts of terrorism. Like you mentioned, they kill people, they destroy lives, they kidnap people. Those are acts that are synonymous to terrorism. So other security analysts say banditry is just a word, you know, that it seems to be lesser, but really is terrorism and that it cannot be separated from Boko Haram. And the Boko Haram terrorist sect have actually pledged allegiance to ISWAP. So many people would say they are one and the same. I don't understand how you might want to separate them then.
I have already separated them by their doctrine. I said Boko Haram and ISWAP are Islamic activists or terrorists that believe in Islamization. But I have been fair to Islam that there is nothing like activism or terrorism accepted by the Islamic doctrine. Based on research I conducted 25 to 27 years on Islamic theology, Islamic democracy and Islam, and the Islamic philosophy, and how Islam deals with criminal psychology and criminal activities. Bandits, I said ISWAP and Boko Haram, they are intertwined and they are educated. They are vast in Islamic education, and many of them are engineers, architects, civil engineers, biotechnologists, social scientists, medical scientists. There are all sorts of professional experts that went through the university and obtained highest maximum qualification you may think of. Many of them have first class. Many of them have second class upper. Many of them have second class lower. But none of the bandits. I know all their leaders. I have interacted with almost all the leaders of the bandits in northern Nigeria. Direct interaction. And I am reaffirming to anybody, I'm a field-based researcher. Right now that I'm talking to you, I'm at the downstream of the states of Zamfara, Katsina, Sokoto, and Kebbi. And I am conducting a streamlined analysis situation analysis of the impact of the operations or the new rules that introduced by these states of Niger and others, Niger, Zamfara, Kaduna, and others. So I'm a field-based practical person. I want to confirm and affirm to you that none of the bandit leaders in Katsina, in Sokoto, in Kebbi, in Zamfara, in Jigawa, in Kano, in Niger, in Kaduna can write A, and none of them can write B, and none of them can differentiate between A and B for you.
All right, Mr. Gatso.
So let's get it very clear. But ISWAP and Boko Haram and Ansaru, they are well versed in Western and Islamic education, and most of them are professionals. I know many of them that are architects. Many of them are engineers. Many of them I know among the medical doctors who are operating within us.
Okay, Mr. Getso.
Thank you.
Well, I think, you've done very, very well in, pointing out these things. It's also, I think one of the things that we've also struggled with is knowing who is responsible for certain attacks without them necessarily having to claim responsibility. That's also one of the things that Nigerians have struggled with over time. So can you help, us, with that regard? How is it easier to identify who might be responsible for certain attacks? The attack on the NDA, for example, and other army formations that we've also heard about. Can we identify a group by its mode of operation? Is that possible? And, when army formations are attacked, can we simply point out and say, okay, this is very likely Boko Haram or ISWAP or just bandits? Is that easy to do by, just pointing out from their mode of operation?
The mode of operandi of their operations differs. Strategically, the Boko Haram and ISWAP direct their attacks on institutions. Institutions like mosque, like church, like MDS, as you mentioned. So they are strategically focusing on that. While the bandits, their attacks, like I keep saying, 99.9% of the attacks of the bandits, they attack the people they know. And the people they attack, they know them. And they are indigenous. Some of the ISWAP and the Boko Haram, some of them, to some extent, there is a combination of nationals, that is citizens and foreigners. There are few foreigners among the bandits, but they are not conducting operations in terms of attacks. Most of the operators, most of them that operate within the bandits' geographical terrain of North Central and Northwest, Southern Northwestern states, they are armed importers and armed traders. So, like I keep mentioning, among this, the supply chain mechanism or the command of the channel of command in terms of supply and operations, you have armed importers. Most of them, 99.9%, are foreigners. You have armed traders. 99.9% are foreigners. You have armed distributors and armed transporters. 99.9% are indigenes of Nigeria. And 99.9% of bandits who are operating in Sokoto, they are indigenes of Sokoto. Those who are operating in Zamfara, they are indigenes of Zamfara. Those who are operating in Niger, they are citizens of Niger because they have been born there, and maybe for certain reasons they have settled there for a number of 20 or more years. Likewise, Kaduna and all other states that you may think about. So their mode of operandi for bandits is to kidnap for ransom, to kill the villagers who have a kind of probably marital relationship, sometimes so many other reasons that time may not permit me to explicitly discuss it. But they are illiterate and their target is not institutions. It is in a very few situations, much later, after 2018, 2019, and 2020, up to 2021, much later, much later, the bandits started attacking institutions like the military camp in areas where they feel threatened, so that they can weaken the military to enable them for them to have opportunity to be able to reach their target, which is the next community. So, but strategically, ISWAP, Boko Haram, and Ansaru, they are targeting the institutions of government, the private institutions like universities, like what happened in Greenfield University, the institutions in Northwestern state and Northeastern state, even though at a later time, the bandits also employ the strategy of attacking the institutions, but in a different way. Boko Haram, ISWAP, and Ansaru, if they go to institutions, they try to destroy it. They try to kill and detonate bomb. Bandits, if they go to institutions, they try to kidnap students for ransom. So they're entirely a different groups, and they have no iota of relationship. Okay. Besides the only one meeting they had in the vicinity of Niger, Zamfara, and Kebbi, which I mentioned earlier.
Okay, Mr. Getso, can we talk a bit about their recruitment methods, if they're different? Because we've heard and seen in the news sometimes some terrorist group, we don't know who they are, go ahead and they give people money, give them foodstuff, convincing them to join. We've seen others just go and kidnap and then they turn them, as part of them. So is there any difference between their recruitment method? Also, any difference in the age, their recruitment bracket? Because we've seen some recruit children, some recruit adults. So any fundamental difference between Boko Haram, ISWAP, and the bandits?
Yes, of course. There is different strategy for recruitment for both of them. Boko Haram, ISWAP, and the Ansaru, the way they do their recruitment is any community, if they attack institution, and the institution, or if they attack community, whatever age, even the age of 6. I met someone at the age of 6 among the Boko Haram in one community in Askira Oba local government of Southern Borno, as part of one of them, which is not up to, which is between 7 and 6 years. So I can tell you that anybody, any remainers after they kill, whatever they cut as a hostage, they move with them and they train them, they mobilize them, and they intoxicate them using drugs and other things to influence them to also buy into what they are, and sometimes they force them. That is one. That is Boko Haram and ISWAP. But for the bandits, their way of recruitment is different, because most of their recruitment is voluntary. It is for those who lost their cattle or those who wish to join them, because among the bandits, like I keep saying, it's less than 35 to 40 of Fulani that are involved in the banditry. 60 and above or thereby are not interested among the Fulani in Nigeria, are not interested, they don't have passion, they hate what their core people doing. They don't like it. So it's not every Fulani or every nomad that you see that is a bandit. It's between the percentage of 35 to a maximum of 40 that are doing it. So the way they recruit, 99.9% of the recruitment procedure is a volunteerism. I am a nomad. You kill my father, you go away, you rustle our cattle, and so on and so forth. So what is the way forward for me? I have a team of other guys who are my clan. So I'll sell out the rest of the remaining cow, either 2 or 3, and then help them to ask them to help me to get AK-47. So if I have AK-47, you have AK-47, all of us come along and form a team and have a leader.
All right. You also get so.
Whereas Boko Haram and ISWAP and Ansaru is well coordinated, well organized, formal structure of educated, and they have all sorts of communication and understanding. Yeah. One thing that will interest you, among these illiterates of bandits, if you see the way they dismantle and reassemble arms, you will be surprised. But if you write A and B and C and ask them, what is this? They'll just be laughing at you. They don't know what is A. They don't know what is B. They don't know what is C. But right. Among the Boko Haram guys I interacted with, especially in the extreme end of Askira Uba, Dikwa, Mubi, Michika, Maiha, Madagali, and some other part of Borno, during the investigation and conduct of research, I have seen many who speaks much, much better English than I do. My first degree was in Arabic literature, and I speak Arabic much more than my mother's tongue. But I want to tell you sincerely and honestly that I have met many among the ISWAP and Boko Haram and Ansaru that speaks Arabic much, much better and understood it better than me. And they speak English much, much better than I do. And I met many of them who are graduate with a PhD, with masters. I even met somebody with 7 MScs. At the age of 70, at the age of 62. So they are different.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Getso, I don't think anyone would have done a better job, with this conversation. Oh, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We would love to continue speaking with you to understand these things better.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. At your convenience, anytime you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So our next conversation would be about that presidential zoning in 2023, like we talked about. Stay with us.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. The conversation is about the 2023 presidential zoning, and there's been calls from several quarters to zone the presidency for 2023 to the south. But still, many leaders, especially in northern Nigeria, disagree, and they say that they have strength in numbers and, of course, would go ahead to push for a northern candidate come 2023. Let's invite our guest now, Mr. Ibrahim Oshinawo. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, viewers. Good morning, Nigerians.
Morning.
Okay. I want us to first get your way in on this subject matter regarding zoning to the south or to the north. In the south, they're saying that leaders, especially Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, has said that the next president of Nigeria should come from the south and that they should follow the rotational system because of the principle of justice and fairness. But on the other hand, northern leaders are saying that we should not neglect competence for justice and fairness, and that there are also competent leaders amongst northerners. Where do you come in?
Anyway, I will start by, going into the background of, new northern elites and the young ones who are probably my age peers, like my friend, the Arewa Consultative Forum, what's his name? Shetima. He raised this issue, back in probably in December in Abuja, where we were at the conference. And personally, I told him that, look, the major issue in this country is not about you being a party A, party B, or party C. It's about fairness, equity, and justice. The northern elites who are clamoring for northern presidency again are so vicious in their thoughts because most of the challenges of security that we are having in this country, even right from the Boko Haram, the Masop, and the rest of them, are foundationed on fairness, equity, and justice. There is no justice, and any society where you don't have fairness, equity, and justice, what you will see is a security breach, emancipation of people from one point to the other, insurrection, and the rest of it. And we need to look inward. I expect the National Security Advisor to come in and advise at this point in time. You remember during President Jonathan, His Excellency, during the election, changing postponement at the end of the National Security Advisor advised in a crucial, and I'm also in a crucial time, and I'm also calling on the National Assembly to wade into this, shallow discussion, because I'm sure by December, by grace of God, or by early next year, the northern agenda is going to pop up. And when it pops up, it's going to hit our politics like never before. Now, their calculation is President Obasanjo, His Excellency, has served for 8 years from the south. President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua served for 2 years. Then the southern president, President Goodluck Jonathan, has taken up for another 6 years. That is 8 plus 6, that's 14 years. Then, inshallah, by grace of God, President Buhari will finish his 8-year tenure, married to the two from President Umaru Yar'Adua. That will be 10 years, that they still have the leftover of 4 years. The issue that warranted the lapses and taking over from the south was just natural, that nobody has control of. The southern does not force themselves into power. The nature take its course. And I told him, I told some of my northern friends that, look, the military has ruled this country more than any other tribe. And most of the military leaders are from the north. From General Yakubu Gowon, President Obasanjo took over just like as 1979, just less than 2 or 3 years, handed over to a civilian. President Buhari General Buhari came in. From there, Babangida. From there, General Abacha. From there, we have General Abdul Salam, and so many others. Now, if we are calculating that at this point in time, where we have division across the country, people are clamoring for succession, people are making this, we need to pacify the agitators. We need to be honest and be nationalistic. The going back to the North agenda they are clamoring for, I believe it won't see the light of the day. And I hope some of the Northern elites will rethink and believe that, okay, we have done 8 years. Let the South, comes in I give kudos to the Southern governor. Like never before, the Southern governor under the leadership of His Excellency Governor Akeredolu and the Governor Kayode Fayemi has been doing wonderfully well. And I give it to the PDP governors in the South as well. They each the party affiliation and become a patriotic governor who sees that the coexistence of this country is so germane and paramount to them. So I will advise those who are clamoring for the Northern governor, for the Northern presidency, to please rethink and be, and fight for the unity of this country. The PDP, we understand what they are doing. I can tell you for free that their national chairman will come from the South, thinking that they can bank on the strength of the North with numbers and move the presidency back to the North.
Mr.
We can't speak for them. Time will tell. Yes.
Yeah. So that's an angle that I wanted to get you to speak on. The PDP's decision, of course, they're going to be very careful, with regards who they eventually pick, and also be watchful as to whoever the APC also puts forward to look at their chances. But there is also that narrative, when you mentioned just now that they will pick their chairman from the South and then pick their presidential candidate from the North, there's that narrative that, the North basically includes the Middle Belt, includes also the southern parts of different northern states, which seems to be a little unfair because, of course, the Middle Belt have every now and then always tried to point out that they don't necessarily belong and they should not just be grouped along with northern Nigeria. So I want you to speak with regards to that. And then also, there are certain promises that were made, if you remember, in 2015 and I believe in 2019, to the Southeast, seeking their support. And of course, making those promises that they would be, allowed to, win presidency. Doesn't it feel, sad for, the Southeast now that they don't even seem to be being brought into the conversation?
Look, the Southeasterners, of course, they have one of the best. Even some of my, professional mentor who are in the South, like Professor Charles Soludo, Professor Mogolu, the rest of them, they are Southeast has one of the fantastic and, decent guys in terms of policy, economy, in terms of governance, infrastructure, in terms of, growing the tech industry. I give it to the Southeast. They are one of the pillars of this country, and they have the right to the presidency. But unfortunately, politics is a game of number. It's a game of negotiation. I don't sit in my house and expect somebody to bring the ticket of Senate or vote me into a National Assembly. It's not going to happen. I have to go out there and push for it, negotiate, discuss, and make sure things happen. So the Southeasterners need to negotiate. I think I can't remember the name of the present Indigo Youth Indigo Association. I forgot the professor.
Professor John Obiozo.
Yes, the old man is a fantastic man. He said Indigo has one of the best breed, and they are ready to negotiate. If the both leading party switch their presidential ticket into the South, Indigo has one of the brightest chances. There are some, personally, if my party nominates certain names from Igbo land, I will be at the front of the national campaign. Yes, they believe that, the North will not, trust them with power, even some section of the South believes that as well. But they have to come out and campaign. What Governor Obi said on the Arise TV yesterday also is to let them understand that they have the best brain, but they are ready to come out and channel their campaign into allowing other tribes and other regions to see the quality they have. So they have to negotiate. They are not going to bring the presidency into their region on Salakat. They have to come out, they have to be strategic, they have to campaign even to the north, to the other region, northeast, northwest, southwest, south, to let them see reason why they can lead the country and why they can assure others that there is not going to be breakup of this country. Because the issue they are having is that people believe that if they have the power, the country will disintegrate. And that we can actually, project for them or assure them. They have to campaign. Like in the Southwest where I come from, we have one of the best brain. We have some of our leaders who are showing their interests both direct and indirectly. And you see the emancipation of people popping into APC, you know, believing that that's the vehicle that can lead this country based on what they are doing right now. PDP also believes that they have some of the smartest guys in the North, and they are zoning their vice presidential candidate back to the Southeast. Some of them who are my friends believe that they are zoning to the Southeast is the best as a vice president. In fact, under Governor Fintiri right now, they have the structural, you know, how their government is going to look like. And I'm sure in the Southeast is going to take the chunk of their government position, eventually, if they eventually, which I doubt, I'm not sure they can even, you know, come into that. If they eventually form the government, which I'm sure they cannot, obviously, most of the allotment of their position will go to the Southeast to just to pacify and let them feel the inclusiveness. But however, they have to come out and campaign. The South, we have quality governors like Governor Wike, you know, Governor of Ebonyi State. We have the Governor of Anambra State, Willoughby Ano, who have done pretty well for me. And we have some quality governors in the Southwest. Governor Dakwabiodu, who is doing well, also Governor Sanwo-Olu doing well, and among Governor Fayemi, a qualified second-time governor, who is doing fantastically and leading the governors as well. So we have quality people in the South. So they have to come out and market their product. I'm not going to do that for them. So they must come out. So that's what I think about that.
You have been talking about the issue of, you know, secessionist agitations, and the way it's seeming like, you know, as though a presidential ticket is going to be a way to appease people who want to break out of Nigeria. Would that not be just avoiding the issue? Why don't we find a way to fix the root cause of why these people are agitating, rather than just hand over, you know, a presidential ticket? What if the person is incompetent enough for leadership and they just give them the presidency simply because you want to appease these people who are agitating to break out of the country? Because bear in mind, the fact that they want a southern presidency, that's not the only reason why these people are agitating. They're agitating for all-round inclusiveness and not just the presidency.
Look, my dear sister, there's no way we can hand over. I'm not saying we're going to hand over the ticket to the Southeast. Agitation or no agitation is not coming from the Southeast alone. It's coming from the Southwest. It's coming from the Middle Belt. It's coming from every part of the country. So it's not about handing over. Nobody will hand over the ticket to them. There's many ways of pacifying them, you know, making them feel inclusive in what everybody is doing. And they are doing it. You can imagine they have minister for labor. They have minister for environment right now, Sharon Ikeazo. They have so many, you know, ministers in the juicy. The head of budget is one of them. You know, they have one of the best brains in the government, and, you know, there's better ways that the party can do better, probably giving them one of the topmost, you know, kitchen cabinet appointment. But they have to market as well. Nobody will give them all these positions, you know, because they are agitating. I can agitate from the Southwest. Sunday Igboho is agitating from my own region, believing that people have been killed unjustly. So everybody can agitate. I can decide tomorrow that I want to be an agitator. It's my choice. And because I'm agitating does not mean that they have to bring the presidency or they have to bring the, let's say, a chief of staff to the president or a secretary to the federation to Southwest. So it doesn't work like that. They have to market themselves. They have to discuss with other tribes. And Indigo is doing very, very well in terms. The new leadership is doing fantastically well, you know, negotiating. And you can imagine what they are doing in the Southeast. You know, disrupting young folks who are writing WAEC, damaging their small-scale businesses, shutting down their business. Most of the banks are not working there. They are not affecting Southwest. They are killing their economy.
Let's because of the time.
So these are the things I see that the young folks around there can do better. They can come to the table, negotiate. Even Nnamdi Kanu can come to the table and negotiate. Okay, these are my grievances. These are the things. These are the reasons why I want to move. And I encourage the federal government as well to allow them to come to the table. You can sit on the coffee table and negotiate. These are the things I don't want. These are the things I think is right. These are the things I think we want more in the government.
All right, Mr. Oshino, kindly hold on. Yeah, kindly hold on because of you know, we have just a few minutes left. I want you to, you mentioned earlier, politics is a game of numbers, and that will determine very greatly what the position the PDP will take if it wants, to have a strong chance of winning. But can you share with us, what direction you think the APC would also take if it really wants to stand a chance of winning again in 2023? Seeing the little details here and there as to where the people would likely want to, vote. I've heard people say whoever it is that brings forth a southern candidate is who I'm going to vote for, regardless of the party. So, what position do you think the APC would like to take?
Yes, unfortunately, I may not be able to speak for the party. I'm not a spokesperson, I'm a member of the party, so I can speak on my personal, renderings. Now, our party has done greatly well in the north, in terms of infrastructure development and tackling the security. Don't forget that we met the security challenge in place. We met the IDPs camp in place. We met a lot of things in place, and we are doing well to subvert the pressure. And we are negotiating, putting more investment in that angle. Now, if the party decides that the presidency is going to be zoned to the west, a lot of people to the south, a lot of people is going to vote for us from the north. Don't forget that if we zone the party ticket to the south, of course, the vice president is going to come from the north and other positions. So if the party decides, whatever the party decides, I'm fine with it, and I can assure you, the northern will vote for. APC is a tag on your chest. It's hard for you to remove it. So everybody is going to vote for APC, even in the north. So we are waiting. And we're just giving them a few months to round up their convention, and we will swing into action and make sure that the party performs credibly well. Most of our governors are doing well. Name them. People are joining into our party. Recently, you can see some of these strong PDP stewards. I don't want to mention them. I don't want to promote anybody who are trooping in. They could see the light now, as they rightly said. Most of them, and I will be expecting some of them, like Dino too. Distinguished senator, most of them are still coming to join APC. So many governors from the southeast also are still coming to join APC. So you can see in my own states, you can see what we're doing in Lagos, in Ogun, credibly with good infrastructural development, good economic policy, and the rest of them. So we hope anywhere we zone our presidential candidate, we're going to have a quality presidential candidate, quality one that will deliver the goods for ordinary Nigerians, that will subvert the agitation of people, including the southeast, discuss with them. So we are set for it. I can assure you we'll form the next government again.
Mr. Oshinowo, are you saying that Dino Melaye is coming to the party?
Yeah, Dino, I've known Dino during our school days as a NAS member. Dino is a very fantastic, legislator. He's a vibrant and dogged gentleman. He will see the light again. He used to say it that before he was blind, and now he's, he could see the light.
All right, Mr. Oshinowo, we'll be waiting for the official announcements. Thank you very much.
No, just we discussed about one gentleman that just joined recently. We told you several on this studio that is coming.
Thank you, Mr. Oshinowo. That's all for now. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Have a great day. All right, that's it there on The Breakfast this morning. Really talked about the fundamental difference between Boko Haram, ISWAP and banditry, and the conversation about the 2023 presidential elections and zoning. Thanks again for watching. Catch up on any part of the conversation you missed out on by following us on all social media platforms at PlusTvAfrica. I am Aneta Felix.
And I am Osaogi Ogbonwa.
Bye for now.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes,
Yeah,
but
we
without
have
showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6. So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
Then you
them
go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
And our thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Destiny Momo. The Southern and Middle Belt Alliance has come down hard on the Northern Elders Forum over its recent statement on the 2023 general election. The spokesman of the forum, Hakeem Baba Ahmed, was recently quoted to have boasted that Northern Nigeria has the voting population and would not play second fiddle in 2023. In reaction, the Southern and Middle Belt Alliance has described the statement as reckless, careless, and insensitive. The alliance wants Dr. Baba Ahmed to note that the Middle Belt is also a part of the North and that Nigeria is battling to preserve its unity. And more people are lending their voices to the call for the presidency to be zoned to the Southeast in 2023. A former advisor on media and publicity to Governor Nyesom Wike Opunabo in Kotaria has also joined the vanguard. He was our guest on Monday on Plus Politics, and he said this step should be taken to assuage the Southeast region and calm frayed nerves.
If you talk of justice, equity, and fair play, the truth is, if you ask me, I will say the presidency should be zoned to the Southeast. Because the Southeast right now feels marginalized. Some people say let it be plant on meritocracy. Talking of meritocracy, every region has qualified candidates. But we talk of even the federal character in order to ensure inclusiveness, oneness, and to make everybody believe that you are part of the system. Because if we talk of numerical strength, then that is what is leading to, that is what is causing the problem we're having today, that people are talking of separatist groups. So if you ask me, I will tell you the truth about it should be zoned to the southeast. After the southeast, then we can now say, okay, let us talk of the best. Now meritocracy takes precedence.
The news of the defection of former Aviation Minister Femi Fani-Kayode from People's Democratic Party to the ruling All Progressive Congress has continued to cause a stir across the nation. Our correspondent Jacinta Obiuku was in the streets of Lagos to get reactions from some Nigerians.
All over the world, political parties in democratic settings are distinguished and identified by their ideologies and guiding philosophies. Sad leaders are lacking in Nigeria in the current political dispensation. Research indicates that none of the countries regarded as great democracies in the world has laws against defections. Yet, party defection rarely takes place at the scale it does in Nigeria. The recent defection by the former Minister of Aviation Femi Fani-Kayode from PDP to the ruling party of APC, despite being one of the prominent opposition voices against present government, still has Nigerians talking, questioning the integrity and the trust of the political class.
It is a shame that we have no politicians with ideology in Nigeria. FFK presented himself as one of such people with good ideology until recently. They are playing chess with the masses. So a time will come when the masses will become the chess master and they will become the pawn.
Politicians have learned to a kind of work on people's mind and work on people's emotions to get what they want.
Basically, he has been against this present government since it entered. So him just switching from where he is to another party doesn't make any sense to me. So I just feel that they take us as a joke. So whatever is playing underneath on the ground, it will surface eventually.
Godwin Ipotoken is a legal practitioner. He speaks on Nigerian anti-defection law, which he believes is inadequate in the changing political landscape of the country.
That anti-defection law actually affects people who come into position on a particular political platform. And there are rules set out on how and when you can defect. But in this case, in the case of Nigeria, that is not the case. Once anybody defects to APC, they celebrate it. And that is it. Even when you go to court, they frustrate it with all sorts of gimmicks.
Marcos Allende believes the development is a clarion call for the youths to take positions in politics.
It's an eye-opener for all young people to embrace politics and make a positive change.
In all, opinion polls indicate that the prevalence of cross-carpeting in Nigerian politics continues to threaten the consolidation of democracy in the country. Jacinta Obiuku for Plus TV Africa.
Thanks, Jacinta, for that report. And as the PDP Congress approaches, some aggrieved members of the party have kicked against the return of Governor Seyi Makinde for a second term. Apparently, the governance style of the governor just doesn't go down well with them.
If we do the Congress together, it will be one list. Where the one side refuses to do with the other side, it means there will be two lists. You know what I mean? If it gets dropped, then the party will have to tell us if the side that the list is not accepted, are they not party members? And you know, the law says you cannot exclude anybody from the Congress as long as the person buys form. We bought the form, we got receipt for the form, so that will mean exclusion.
I think that all hands must be on deck to prepare the member, to send the signal outside for the member, for them to be well attended in their various wards, to coordinate themselves, not to do anything within us, not to fight each other, to be a good ambassador in their various wards.
And military authorities are making plans to prosecute surrendered terrorists. The commander of Operation Hadinkai, Major General Christopher Musa, disclosed these in Maiduguri. But he maintains that the prosecution will be done in line with international laws. More than 1,200 terrorists and their families recently surrendered and have been welcomed by the federal government against protests from northeast communities. Major General Musa also says the military is doing its best to disrupt the current mass recruitment being carried out by the Islamic State of West African province, ISWAP. The military had recently raised the alarm that the group had embarked on a fresh recruitment drive. The Sokoto state government has shut down telecommunications networks in 14 of the 23 local government areas of the state. It is coming about 3 weeks after it approved an executive order in response to insecurity. The state had earlier closed some roads, suspended animal trade, and limited the number of persons that can be carried on motorcycles and tricycles. The moves are meant to reduce the mediums through which criminal groups communicate and move around. But rights groups are worried that innocent people are also affected as they are cut off from loved ones. Crime has been a major source of worry in Sokoto, with the latest being the Sunday killing of 6 locals in Saminaka village. The Chief of Army Staff, Major General Farouk Yahaya, is on a visit to Lagos to inspect military formations and other vital engagements. He speaks on measures adopted by the Nigerian Army to end insecurity, and this was during his visit to 64 Battalion, Bonny Camp in Lagos. PlusTvAfrica's correspondent has more. After 185 years of existence, the Nigerian Army maintains discipline year on year. The Chief of Army Staff shows how fit troops and superiors of the Nigerian Army are. He engages them in several counts of press-ups while on a visit to 64 Battalion, Bonny Camp. He speaks to troops on the need to be their brother's keeper, synergy and well-being of the members of the Nigerian Army.
It's by design, it's not like that. That's why you have to work hard, earn a place, and be promoted. Seniority is important, but it's not the only one. There are other things that are checked. And all of you know, all of you have postmate or intake mate. Among your intake mate, you know those that were constantly on line guard. You know those that are on the other side. You also know those that are hardworking. So should we treat them all the same thing? Because they were the same thing. No. There's a procedure. And if you are a warrant officer up to that level, it's not necessary that you must be. If you have other challenges, thank God. Check among your intake mate, how many? I warrant officer. Sometimes what we do, we forget our blessing and count other people's own.
Not forgetting insecurity, Major General Yahaya speaks to journalists on measures taken so far to curb the menace.
I appreciated the job they are doing, and now I have seen also areas of intervention and support that we will continue to give. I want to assure that Nigerian Army will continue to do its best to address the myriad of security challenges that we're having across the country, whether it is northeast, northwest, north central, southeast, south, and all across. And the soldiers are doing well in synergy, of course, with other services, other agencies, and other stakeholders, including traditional rulers, traditional institutions, opinion leaders, and all others. We need all hands to be on deck, and together we can fight this insecurity and these other challenges we find ourselves.
Perhaps periodic engagements like this by the Chief of Army Staff will add some motivation to the well-won morale of the Army in combating insecurity. Meanwhile, Chief of Army Staff Major General Farouk Yahaya paid a courtesy visit to Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu at the Lagos House Marina. He commends the governor for the huge task of overseeing a sensitive state with air, sea, and land borders successfully, and his friendship with the Nigerian Army in Lagos.
Lagos is unique. It has everything you mentioned. It has land border, sea border, and air border. and in terms of population and all other parameters of development, Lagos is unique. And that's why now the synergy is required between the Army, other services, other agencies, including other stakeholders, including community leaders, opinion leaders, so that together we can harness particularly information sharing and synergy so that we can enhance our operations.
We are indeed grateful that in the last 4 or 5 months that you have taken over the leadership of the Nigerian Army, that indeed we've seen all of the efforts, very strategic efforts that you've started bringing in. And we know that at some point in time, it will get to our turn in Lagos for you to come and have a look at your men and see what they're doing. And so we want to welcome you to Lagos. We want to welcome you to the state of aquatic splendor. We want to welcome you to the heartbeat of the nation. We want to welcome you to the center of excellence.
And also, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has signed the bill prohibiting open cattle grazing in the state into law. He signed the bill earlier on Monday, according to the governor's media aide on print media, Wale Ajetumobi. The bill was passed after unanimous votes by the lawmakers. And the tussle between the Nigerian health sector and the federal government may face a dangerous twist. This is following a fresh 15-day ultimatum issued to the federal government to meet their demands. The ultimatum is from the Joint Health Sectors Union, JOHESU, and Assembly of Healthcare Professional Associations, APA. The bone of contention is the non-implementation of consolidated medical salary structure and poor work condition of health workers.
From indications, the back and forth between the federal government and resident doctors seems may not be ending soon. More support is now being drummed up for the National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, the Joint Health Sector Unions, JOHESU, and the Assembly of Healthcare Professionals, HAPA, may join the ongoing strike by resident doctors. Perhaps they will get the government to meet their demands this time around, even after the expiration of the 15-day ultimatum earlier issued. A former spokesman of Association of Medical Lab Scientists, Kasmia Ifeanyi, was a guest on The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica.
What is the issue here? We have the common salary scale, which was produced same time, secularized same date with the common salary scale. Unfortunately, because the other people are in political corridors, they've been able to get about 3 times review of the consolidated medical salary structure, but not even a single review. Whereas the memorandum of agreement we have with government does stipulate clearly that for every consequential adjustment on the comments, there shall be a reciprocal on the current salary structure. That is yet to happen.
Dr. Bassi chairs the chairman of Joint Health Sector Union, JOHESU, University of Calabar Teaching Hospital. He wants their accumulated issues after the expiration of the ultimatum. They may likely withdraw their services.
We are demanding an increment on our salary scale. The same thing was done for the medics. Their comments, they enjoy comments, that is consolidated medical salary scale. And in 2014, the adjustment was made for them. And since that 2014, we have been battling with government to equally adjust them, because all of us are exposed to the same type of environment in terms of work. At the expiration of the 15 days, and government do not do the needful, there will be an emergency next meeting. I want to meet in Abuja. We will take a decision on that. So that too, if it comes to that, if there's no sincerity on the part of government, we will have no other option than to withdraw our services, depending on when government is ready to listen to us and do the needful.
Now, the pressure seems mounting from both sides. We wait to see where the pendulum will swing next. Merci beaucoup for PlusTvAfrica.
And moving on to other parts of Africa, a Rwandan court has found a one-time hotel manager portrayed as a hero in a Hollywood film about the 1994 genocide and guilty of being part of a group responsible for terrorist attacks.
A Rwandan court found Paul Rusesabagina, a former hotel manager portrayed as a hero in a Hollywood film about the 1994 genocide, guilty of being part of a group responsible for terrorist attacks on Monday.
The court finds that they should be found guilty for being part of this terror group, MRCD-FLN. They attacked people in their homes, they attacked people in their cars, or even on the road traveling.
The case has had a high profile since the 67-year-old was arrested last year on arrival from Dubai after what he described as a kidnapping by Rwandan authorities. Human Rights Watch said at the time that his arrest amounted to an enforced disappearance, which it called a serious violation of international law. Since being portrayed by actor Don Cheadle in the 2004 film Hotel Rwanda, Rusesabagina emerged as a prominent critic of President Paul Kagame. He had denied all the charges against him, while his supporters called the trial a sham and proof of Kagame's ruthless treatment of political opponents. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence on 9 charges, including terrorism, arson, taking hostages, and forming an armed rebel group, which he directed from abroad. Rusesabagina, who became a global celebrity after the film, used his fame to highlight what he described as rights violations by the Kagame government, a Tutsi rebel commander who took power after his forces captured Kigali and halted the genocide.
And French Defense Minister Florence Pally has met with her counterpart in Mali amid rising tensions over reports Mali plans to hire Russian mercenaries. Pally told reporters after the meeting that she had a frank, direct and complete exchange with Mali's Defense Minister, Colonel Sadio Camara, who didn't comment. And France, which colonized Mali, had warned against signing a deal with Russian private security firm Wagner after claims that the Malian government is close to hiring 1,000 paramilitaries. France already has thousands of troops stationed in Mali. And now moving on to news outside Africa. And France is demanding explanation and clarifications from the United States over the security pacts signed by the US and UK and Australia last week. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian says the issue will dominate talks between the country's Presidents Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron when they speak later this week. In addition, European Union foreign ministers are discussing Australia's scrapping of a $40 billion submarine order with France in favor of the US and British deal. They are meeting on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. It is not clear if the dispute will have implications for the next round of EU-Australia trade talks scheduled for October 12. And the U.S. President Joe Biden has met with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres ahead of his first speech as president at the UN General Assembly. Biden's visit comes amid turbulence in U.S. foreign policy with his chaotic exit from Afghanistan, a deal with Australia for nuclear-powered submarines that has alienated France, and worries about the world's recovery from COVID-19. Biden believes a strong partnership with the UN is more important now than ever, and that no one country can solve key problems alone.
Member state likewise has an obligation to uphold those fundamental commitments and that we've all made. And normally the task is already ahead for each one of us, and it's real. But the vision of the United Nations has never been short in ambition, any more than our Constitution. But the ambition matters. Today, governments must continue to work together in a system built on international law to deliver equitable prosperity, peace, and security for everyone. And this is as valuable and necessary today as it was 76 years ago.
As you have clearly affirmed the strong commitment of the United States to the UN and to multilateralism. The multilateralism that we also want to see reformed or effective, more in line with the need to solve the dramatic problems of this world.
And in business news, the federal government has told companies to pay their value-added tax to the Federal Inland Revenue Services, FIRS. And this is coming as the deadline for the remittance of VAT for August expires. The FIRS in some states have been engaged in a legal battle over VAT collection. It used to be the exclusive responsibility of the FIRS until Rivers State challenged it in court and won. The FIRS appealed the ruling and got an order for stay of execution. The next battle will take place at the Supreme Court. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says the severe disruptions to the agricultural value chains occasioned by rising insecurity and the COVID-19 pandemic in the country calls for serious concern. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, who stated this, said that if urgent and resilient actions are not implemented, Nigeria may experience a severe food crisis. Emefiele, who was represented by the Deputy Governor, Economic Policy, Dr. Kingsley Obiora, said this while presenting a keynote address at the 2021 CBN Executive Seminar held recently in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. He stated during the seminar that the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United Nations reported that at least 9.2 million people in Nigeria faced food crisis between March and May 2021. And up now is entertainment news. Ghanaians are celebrating Michela Cole's Emmy for Best Writing in a limited series. The celebrations have been as loud on social media as they have been offline. The British actress of Ghanaian heritage became the first black woman to win an Emmy with her hit series, First May Destroy You. I May Destroy You, I beg your pardon. And it follows main character Arabella as she deals with the trauma of a sexual assault. Michela Cole starred in, wrote, and co-directed the drama. And in sports news, Barcelona linked to a 1-1 draw at home to lowly Granada in La Liga, with defender Ronald Araujo's last-minute header to rescue a point. There were just 27,000 out of a possible 40,000 fans inside the ground. The fans were stunned into silence after 85 seconds as Domingos Duarte rose at the back post to head in Sergio Ecuador's center. The result leaves Barca in 7th place on 8 points from 4 matches. Granada, meanwhile, remain without a win and are in 17th spot on 3 points from 5 matches. And that's the news brief. For more, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Destiny Momo. Thanks for watching.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria?
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.